Today we will delve into and uncover the details of the tragic event that occurred in the home of Michael Roberts. Michael Roberts seemed to epitomize perfection. As a successful architect, he was not only a master of his craft but also a distinguished member of the community. His kindness and responsiveness made him well loved among friends, colleagues, and neighbors. Michael was renowned for his philanthropic efforts. He regularly sponsored local charity events, supported orphanages, and organized cultural activities in Omaha. His generosity and willingness to help knew no limits. His home was frequently the venue for gatherings where he was the life of the party. His sense of humor and engaging personality endeared him to all his guests. Colleagues spoke of him as an easygoing and professional individual, and many considered him a model of friendliness and professionalism. Michael always found time for his neighbors. He assisted with minor household problems, participated in neighborhood events, and was someone you could turn to for advice or help. Neighbors saw him as the perfect community member, always smiling and ready to assist. His wife Lisa, with her green eyes and active lifestyle, complemented him perfectly. She was involved in sports, enjoyed outdoor walks, and was known for her energy and charm. Together, they presented an image of a flawless couple. However, behind this facade of an ideal life lay a dark secret. Beneath the public admiration and familial comfort, Michael led a double life that no one was aware of. His sexual relationship with Jason, his adopted son, was carefully hidden from everyone. These relations not only breached moral boundaries but also posed a threat to his pristine reputation if they were ever exposed. Besides Jason, Michael had affairs with other men with whom he worked. These secretive relationships became a source of deep internal conflict and emotional stress, accumulating and obstructing his ability to maintain the appearance of a serene and happy life. His double life was so well concealed that even close friends and colleagues would never have suspected the dark and complicated reality beneath his seemingly perfect exterior. Thus, Michael Roberts' life, filled with public acclaim and family comfort, harbored a darkness that would ultimately lead to a tragic event. Chapter 2: Discovery of the Body. The morning began with a clear and fresh day. Lisa Roberts got up early to enjoy her morning run. The sun was breaking through a light morning mist, and the air was filled with the scent of fresh greenery and flowers. Lisa always considered her morning run as a way to set the tone for the day and energize herself. After her run, Lisa returned home as the sun was just starting to rise over the horizon. She was in a good mood, looking forward to spending the day at her flower shop, doing what she loved. On her way home, she noticed her neighbors watering the flowers in front of their houses. Lisa nodded to them in greeting and continued on her way. Upon entering the house, Lisa immediately noticed an unusual silence. Usually, at this time, Michael would already be up, enjoying his morning coffee in the kitchen, but today the kitchen was empty. Lisa called out for Michael, but there was no response. She thought he might just be in another part of the house and hadn't heard her. Heading to the kitchen, Lisa saw that the coffee maker was empty and turned off. Michael wasn't there as he usually was. She thought he might be in the bedroom, getting ready for the day. She quickly went there, but Michael was not in the bedroom either. Lisa called for him again, but still there was no reply. Her anxiety grew. Feeling deep concern, Lisa made her way to Michael's study. When she opened the door, she was engulfed by shock and horror. Michael lay on the floor, motionless and surrounded by bloody evidence. Lisa's heart raced, and unable to believe what she saw, she rushed to him. She touched his body, hoping he was still alive, but she felt no breath. In despair, she grabbed her phone and dialed 911. Her voice trembled, and her hysteria made her speech nearly unintelligible. Lisa screamed into the phone, her words interspersed with sobs and gasps. The operator struggled to understand her due to her emotional state, which only heightened her terror and fear. She tried to explain that Michael was dead, and that she urgently needed help. Finally, due to her persistence, the police and medical responders arrived at the house. The arriving detectives and forensic specialists began to examine the crime scene. The room was in disarray, with overturned objects, scattered books and documents, and visible bloodstains. They noted signs of a struggle, indicating violent assault. They also found strange notes and photographs on Michael's desk, adding to the mystery of the investigation. This moment marked the beginning of a long and painful journey for Lisa, uncovering the dark secrets hidden behind the facade of their seemingly perfect life. Chapter 3. The investigation begins. After Liza called the police and medical assistance, the house was filled with noise and activity. Detective Mark Stevens and his team arrived at the crime scene to unravel the complex circumstances of the case and to determine the whereabouts of the missing Jason, Michael's adopted son. When the detectives began examining Michael's study, where the body was found, they noticed signs of a struggle, overturned objects, scattered books, and bloodstains. These clues indicated that there had been a violent confrontation between the victim and the perpetrator. One of the detectives discovered a broken knife on the floor, which might have been used in the crime. Still in shock, Liza confirmed that Jason was missing. She recounted that after returning home from her run, she found Michael dead and noticed that Jason was nowhere in the house. Liza was distraught and worried about his whereabouts. During the interrogation, Detective Stevens asked Liza about Michael's behavior in the days leading up to his death. "When did you last see Michael alive?" "This morning before my run. He was in his study, and I told him I had plans for the day," Liza replied, her voice trembling. "Did you notice anything unusual about his behavior recently?" the detective continued. Liza paused for a moment. "Yes, he had become more withdrawn. He often stayed in his study, and I saw him receiving strange messages on his phone. He seemed worried but never told me what was going on." Liza also recalled that Michael had been avoiding social events he used to participate in enthusiastically. This fact caught the detective's attention, as Michael was known for his active support of charitable organizations and events. The detectives continued to examine the house and noted the disorder in Michael's study, including overturned books and documents. One key find was hidden notes in Michael's desk drawer with names and phone numbers, which the detectives began to investigate. One of the notes contained an address that did not match Michael's usual work environment. Attention turned to Jason, as his disappearance might be related to the murder. Throughout the day, detectives conducted interviews with neighbors and friends of the family, trying to determine where Jason might be and if he had been seen near the house. One neighbor told the detectives that he had seen Jason leaving the house early in the morning, while he himself was watering the flowers. This testimony added a new detail to the investigation. "I thought Jason was just going to school or something," the neighbor said. "He looked tense and didn't stop to talk when I greeted him." Detectives began searching for Jason in nearby areas and checking possible connections with suspects, including those with whom Michael might have had conflicts. Meanwhile, Liza continued to search for her son and tried to cope with the shock of losing her husband. Jason's disappearance complicated the investigation further, and detectives gathered all the details to build a complete picture of the events. With each new clue and Liza's statements, they inched closer to uncovering the truth behind this tragic event. Chapter 4. Unveiling Secrets. After several days of intensive investigation, the detectives discovered crucial information about Michael Roberts' life. The breakthrough came when Jason was found in a state of severe shock. Jason had been missing for several days before he was located. He was found in a forest near the house, sitting on the ground among the trees. His clothes were dirty and torn, his face smeared with blood and grime. He appeared exhausted and in a state of semi-delirium. When the police found him, Jason was non-verbal and almost unresponsive. His condition suggested he was suffering from profound psychological shock and a nervous breakdown. Jason was swiftly taken to the police station, where he received medical care and was initially assessed. As his condition improved slightly, the detectives began their interrogation. During the questioning, Jason revealed the nature of his complex relationship with Michael. "Michael and I were more than just family. We had intimate relationships," Jason confessed, avoiding eye contact with the detective. This startling revelation led to new lines of questioning. It was discovered that Jason had recently learned of Michael's multiple other sexual relationships with men he interacted with professionally and socially. This knowledge ignited Jason's anger and sense of betrayal, leading to severe conflicts between them. Jason recounted the confrontation that occurred on the day of the murder. He had waited until another man, who had been in Michael's office, left. Once the man was gone, Jason stormed into the office, shouting at Michael. "How could you do this to me?" Jason yelled. "How could you treat me like this? You've ruined everything we had." Michael attempted to calm Jason, trying to reason with him amidst the heated argument. Jason calmed down. "We'll talk about this later," Michael said, his voice strained. "No, I can't take it anymore," Jason shouted back. "You're destroying everything, and you expect me to stay quiet." As their argument escalated, Jason threatened to expose Michael's secrets, which could damage his reputation. He declared, "I'll tell Mom about all your affairs and how you betrayed us. Then she'll leave you too. You'll become a joke among your friends and colleagues. Everyone will know what a despicable person you are." In the heat of the moment, Michael, trying to regain control of the situation, slapped Jason across the face. The slap was meant to shock Jason into calming down. Jason, stunned, froze momentarily, his eyes wide with surprise. "Don't touch me," Jason screamed, his voice filled with anguish and rage. Michael, desperately trying to maintain calm, responded, "Please, calm down. We can sort this out if you just calm down." But Jason, overwhelmed by anger and betrayal, couldn't hear Michael's pleas. In a fit of rage, he grabbed a knife, which was later found at the crime scene, and used it during their confrontation. The argument, charged with raw emotions, led to tragic results. These details were confirmed by surveillance footage that captured the intense exchange between Michael and Jason that day. The video showed the escalating argument and Jason's increasingly aggressive behavior. Further investigation revealed that Michael had been involved with several men, underscoring his hidden sexual life. Testimonies from other men confirmed Michael's double life. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that Michael's secret relationships and multiple love interests contributed to the conflict with Jason. These elements were crucial in understanding the motive behind Michael's murder. Jason, acknowledging the gravity of his actions, admitted he lost control of his emotions during the confrontation. He explained that, overwhelmed by rage and the sense of betrayal, he used the knife found at the crime scene. "I didn't know how to handle it when Michael said it was over. I couldn't accept it and lost control," Jason added. Chapter 5: Confession and Arrest. After several days of intensive investigation, detectives gathered enough evidence to charge Jason. The complexity of the case lay not only in Jason's emotional instability, but also in the devastating consequences of his actions. When Jason was found in the forest, his condition was severe. He was dirty, bloodied, with a vacant, glassy stare. His face expressed complete despair and shock. Jason's psychological state was so unstable that he was unable to speak or respond to those around him. At the police station, his condition improved slightly, but he remained in a depressed state. During the interrogation, Jason confessed to the crime. His voice was quiet and trembling, each word seeming to weigh heavily on him. "I killed Michael," Jason admitted, his face hidden behind tear-filled eyes. "I can't justify what I did. I was overwhelmed with rage and couldn't handle it. I was in total despair." Jason explained that his anger and sense of betrayal became so overwhelming that he lost control. He recalled the fateful night when Michael told him their relationship was over. This revelation felt like a crushing blow to Jason, and he couldn't manage the surging emotions. "I knew it was over, but I couldn't accept it. At some point, I just couldn't take it anymore and grabbed the knife," Jason continued. Jason's attorneys tried to mitigate the charges, arguing that the killing was spontaneous and unintentional. They emphasized that Jason's actions were driven by emotional stress and betrayal. This was a desperate act driven by emotions and conflict, Jason's lawyer stated, his voice firm but not entirely convincing. He didn't plan to kill. It was a spontaneous action he couldn't control. However, all the collected evidence, including video recordings, medical reports, and witness testimonies, pointed to premeditated actions. The investigation revealed that while Jason was under significant emotional strain, his actions were deliberate. Lisa, meanwhile, was in a state of profound shock and confusion. Jason's confession about killing Michael was an unimaginable blow. She couldn't believe that her own son was responsible for such a horrific crime. Each day, Lisa faced the reality of her shattered world. She struggled with growing feelings of betrayal and loss. Her mind was filled with images of happier times with Michael, who had seemed like the perfect husband and father. She was engulfed in deep grief that was difficult to put into words. Lisa tried to reach out to Jason to understand his motives and hear firsthand how everything had unfolded. In the courtroom, her face was streaked with tears as she looked at Jason. "How could you, Jason? How could you kill someone who cared for you, who was like a father to you?" Lisa asked, her voice laden with pain and despair. "How could you destroy our lives?" "I don't know, Mom," Jason replied, his voice filled with remorse and deep sadness. "I was overwhelmed with anger and betrayal. I couldn't control my feelings, and at some point, everything just exploded." These words only deepened Lisa's suffering. She was engulfed in boundless grief and a sense of helplessness. The public attention to the case added another layer of stress and turmoil to her life. Her friends and family tried to support her, but Lisa still felt isolated from the world, consumed by her own distress. The process of Jason's arrest and confession marked not only a crucial point in the case, but also the beginning of a new chapter in Lisa's life. She now faced the daunting task of finding a way to cope with her destroyed life, to seek recovery, and to understand how to move forward after such profound betrayals and losses. Chapter 6: The Trial and Verdict. The trial of Jason Roberts became a significant event in the lives of everyone involved and drew considerable public attention. After Jason's arrest and confession, the case moved to court, where the long-awaited proceedings began. The trial was a true test for all participants. Lisa, who had been struggling with grief and betrayal, found herself in the spotlight as the media closely followed the case. It was difficult for her to sit in the courtroom as all her emotions and personal tragedies were laid bare for public scrutiny. The courtroom atmosphere was charged with tension. Prosecutors presented compelling evidence, including witness testimonies and medical reports, confirming that Jason's actions were deliberate. They emphasized that while Jason was emotionally unstable, his actions were intentional and irreversible. Jason's defense attorneys, on the other hand, attempted to mitigate the charges by portraying him as a victim of his own emotions and internal conflict. They argued that his actions were the result of a sudden outburst of anger and were not premeditated. "My client did not plan this murder," Jason's lawyer stated. "It was a desperate act driven by emotional stress and betrayal." The trial was filled with emotional moments. Lisa, sitting in the courtroom, struggled to hold back tears as she listened to testimonies and accounts of Michael's death. Her internal struggle was apparent, and she tried to keep her emotions in check as doctors and experts testified. Jason's testimony was also a crucial part of the proceedings. He once again expressed his remorse for his actions and attempted to explain his behavior. However, his confession did little to lessen the severity of the charges against him. "I understand that I caused immense harm," Jason said, addressing the court. "I want to apologize to everyone who has been affected by my actions." The jury, having heard all the evidence and testimonies, reached a verdict. Amid the emotional strain and stress of the case, they concluded that Jason acted with intent to cause harm, despite his emotional turmoil. The court found Jason guilty of second-degree murder, considering his actions to be reckless but intentional. The court proceedings have confirmed that Jason Roberts committed the crime with intent, the judge announced, his voice firm. The sentence includes 18 years of imprisonment with no possibility of parole. The verdict was a shock for all involved. Lisa felt a sense of relief that the case had reached a conclusion, but the grief over Michael's loss and the betrayal from her son remained a heavy burden. The trial left a profound mark on public consciousness, serving as a reminder of the complexities of human emotions and betrayal. Jason, accepting the verdict, began to come to terms with the scale of his actions. His life in prison began with a long process of adapting to new circumstances and the consequences of his deeds. Meanwhile, Lisa sought ways to cope with her loss and start the process of healing, striving to find new beginnings in her life despite the challenging trials she faced. Chapter 7: Consequences. After the verdict, Lisa and Jason's lives were forever changed. Lisa faced the difficult process of recovery, trying to cope with Michael's loss and the betrayal from her son. Each day presented new challenges for Lisa. Returning to work at the flower shop was tough. Though her colleagues and clients were supportive, their kindness could not fill the void left by Michael. Lisa struggled to maintain her routine, often finding herself on the verge of tears when reflecting on what had happened. The public attention to the case also took a toll on her. The media frenzy surrounding her family's tragedy made it difficult for her to avoid the spotlight, which only intensified her suffering. For Jason, life in prison became a long and arduous test. Adapting to his new reality was challenging. He grappled with inner demons and remorse for his actions. Initially consumed by guilt, Jason gradually sought ways for personal rehabilitation. He participated in self-help programs and rehabilitation efforts within the prison, trying to find meaning and forgiveness for himself. Public memorials for Michael became significant events for the city. They served as a space for expressing condolences and support for the family. Friends and colleagues of Michael attended the ceremonies, remembering him as a kind and generous person who had made a significant impact on the community. Lisa began to slowly rebuild her life and seek ways to move forward. She joined support groups for people who had experienced loss and betrayal, striving to find new sources of strength and hope. Occasionally, she reflected on how things might have been different, but she understood that her task now was to move forward and seek new meaning in life. Epilogue. Several years after the tragedy, Lisa and Jason began new chapters in their lives. Lisa found a sense of peace and made amends with the events of the past. She actively participated in charitable events, supporting organizations that were important to Michael. These actions helped her find a new purpose and direction in life, aiding others in their struggles. Jason, serving his sentence, continued working on himself. He completed several educational programs and became actively involved in helping other inmates. His dedication to personal growth and atonement earned him respect among prison staff. While he knew he could not change his past, he was determined to use his time in prison to make positive changes in his own life and the lives of others. The story of Michael Roberts and his family remained in the public memory as a reminder of how complex human emotions and betrayals can alter lives. The city of Omaha continued to remember Michael, and his legacy inspired acts of kindness and generosity. Lisa and Jason, each in their own way, found paths to reconciliation and healing. Though their journeys were different, both sought ways to come to terms with the consequences of their actions and to build new lives. They understood that their stories became part of a larger narrative of human trials and redemption, finding comfort and hope in that understanding.